Hey, I want to give a high five, a fist bump, a shout out to all the listeners tuning into this motivational channel. Welcome to Dreams in Action. I was thinking about this particular concept. When we were young officers, I remember being a young lieutenant in the Marine Corps and just a young officer, period. We were given certain requirements of which we had to do. One of them, we had to read a number of books that was required for young officers, and even officers today. But I remember reading this book. It was by Sun Tzu, called The Art of War, and it has different parables or different quotes in the book that's expected to give you some ideas of how to be a successful officer or leader, especially if you were going into the combat arms. But I remember this one particular quote. It talks about making room for your enemies, letting your enemies escape. He says that if you're fighting an enemy, if you're battling an enemy and you chase that enemy into a place where they have no place else to go, and you box them into a corner and they have no place else to go, and you attack that enemy with the back against the wall has no place else to go, now will fight you vehemently. And as a result, you stand so much more to lose than you have to gain. And so sometimes you have to make room to let your enemies escape. Now, I was thinking about that. I started thinking, how much room do we allow our own selves to escape? Sometimes it's not always an enemy of someone else. Sometimes the enemy, if you were to ask yourself the question and look in the mirror, sometimes the enemy is in a me. And so we don't make room for ourselves. We don't give grace to ourselves to escape. We hold grudges upon ourselves. We hold ourselves in contempt. We hold ourselves into a place where we're still wrestling and ruminating over something instead of making a way of escape called grace. When I also think about others, sometimes we can be holding on past pains or past grudges. In fact, I remember talking with some beloved colleagues and friends and maybe even family members who are holding on to situations that have occurred, 25, 30 years ago, and still holding on to those things, which is actually stifling them to move forward because they have not learned how to let go. They have not learned how to let their enemies escape, make room for their enemies escape. Let me ask you something. What's keeping you up at night? When you hear a person's name, or when you come up with a certain event, some topic is discussed, what is triggered in you? What comes up in your imagination? Hearing that person's name, do you find your heart becoming at disdain? Or when you hear the sound of a certain conversation, do you now become critical and critique? What's holding you up? What's keeping you bound instead of making room for escape and letting it go? How are you still boxing it in and now trying to fight it? And as a result, you're finding yourself being taken out slowly. In the words of Sun Tzu, hey, give room for your enemy. Let your enemy escape so you can have peace with yourself. Now, let me ask, how do you let these things go? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Let it go. You may have to write about these things. In therapy, we oftentimes, there's one specific method by Gasol. For example, if I were to have you if you're sitting down right now, and if I were to get up from this chair and I was to slide this chair in front of you as an empty chair, and I ask you to put on your mind that thing, that situation, that individual, whatever the case may be, and if you were to see that thing as if you were to imagine that empty chair is that issue, What would you say to it? What would you say to them? I want to afford you this opportunity. I want to slide this thing. Go ahead and get this thing in your mind. I want to slide the chair in front of you, and I want you to place that thing in that chair. Place that person in that chair. Place that situation in that chair that broke your heart, that dismantled your mind. I want you to place it there and speak to it. Call it every perhaps name that you can call it under the sun, if that's what you need to do. I want you to upchuck. I want you to get out everything that you can possibly say, if that's in you, may not be. Or perhaps you can say, you know what? I did the best that I can. Or maybe you want to say, hey, I'm sorry. I forgive you. I love you. But whatever it is, I want you to be able to make room for your enemy that's in me to escape, so you're no longer fighting this thing and causing so much havoc and damage upon your own progress. Did you get that? Good, I'm glad. The second thing is this, perhaps right there where you are, go ahead and grab a journal. I write consistently. What if you were to write down that thing? Maybe it's too difficult to slide the chair and speak to it. What if you were to write it down on a piece of paper? In fact, go ahead and write it down. I mean, write the person who didn't invite you to the barbecue when you were 15. I don't know. Write the one who who took your bike when you were 18 and you're still looking for them today. You're still mad. You get you get triggered when you see a blue bike or a Swin. I don't know. Do they even make Swin bikes anymore? I don't know. Whatever it is. I mean, get that thing on your mind. Man, it's funny. I digress. But I want you to think about it. If you were to write it out, if you were to write about it, failures, mistakes that you made, or whatever the case may be, write it out. Now write it all out on a piece of paper. Now watch. I want you to rip it out. I want you to rip that piece of paper. And I want you to rip that piece of paper and rip it up. I want you to go somewhere. I want you to go on a hike or go for a walk or go for a bike trail. I'm in Hawaii. I'm surrounded by nothing but amazing beaches, incredible, beautiful beaches in which I'll record in the next few weeks. Just amazing that you can take that piece of paper. In fact, I take it down to the water on a hike or wherever, and I take little pieces and ball it up in little spitballs, reflect upon it, then I toss it out into the water. Next one, toss it out into the water. It dissolves, so I'm not polluting the earth. Toss out into the water. And you're allowing each one of those things that you wrote tossed out into the water, and you're having like a watery grave. You need to get it out. You can't hold on to that thing. You have to allow that enemy that's in me room to escape. And so you're getting it out of you so you can begin to allow your life to move forward. So that's all I have. I just wanted to share those two things to you, to encourage you to keep moving forward. There's so much greatness that's still in you. There's so many opportunities available for us out there. But oftentimes, if we don't deal with certain things, we get in our own way. We trip up our own selves to not be able to receive the opportunities because we keep creating dysfunctional systems that causes us to be stifled. Hey, thank you for joining. Hey, listen, look, roll with me, ride with me, rock with me. I'm C.O. Brown, and this is Dreams in Action. Subscribe, like, share. Stay with me. Stay with me. See you next time. See you next time.